Number 7, don't cooperate. Now, unless somebody here has crawled out of a ditch and never seen another human being, you've had to cooperate. Right? Marriage, sports teams, businesses, your neighbors, somewhere. I know you haven't. Didn't crawl out of a ditch. Great. So if you want to kill your community, it's simple. Don't cooperate, right? Of course, that's incredibly passive. That's an incredibly passive way to do it. Because you imagine, you don't want to cooperate, right? Everyone else in here cooperates. They genuinely produce success. It's going to spill over and make you successful anyway. Right? You're just sort of hoping failure comes to you. If you want to really bring about failure, you can't be passive about it. You have to be aggressive. You have to be active. And that means competing. And I don't mean the good competition I talked about in chapter 4. I mean bad competition. There was a community of 3,000 people. It needed a community hall. 3 organizations decided to build a community hall. Sorry, wrong. 3 community organizations decided they each wanted to build their own community hall. They were service clubs. And they all fought and competed for 10 years for the same government grants, for the same donation dollars in the community, for the same volunteers, to each build their own service club, or their own community hall. And none of them for 10 years got it done. In fact, at the end of 10 years, 2 of the service clubs had fundraising dinners on the same night for their halls. The community finally had enough. No one showed up. One of the organizations went broke, the other one got scared, and said to the third one, we need to work together and get this done. And it was amazing. It was brilliant. It took them 1 year to build a community hall when they finally worked together, when they cooperated. But while they were competing for 10 years, nothing happened. Still, there were 2 more communities. They had a CEO come to them. I was trying to help them. They had a CEO come to them and say, we need to build a new factory, a new industry here. This is the perfect location. We're not sure if it's your town or somewhere in between, but it's going to be here. This is fantastic. But the key is that we're going to have so many employees, one of you won't be able to handle it alone. You're both going to need to build new subdivisions. You're both going to need to expand your school, build new rec facilities, expand your health care, because we're going to have so many employees. It's going to be fantastic. Sort it out how you're going to deal with the taxes, and get ready, because I'm going to go do the engineering diagrams. I'll be back in a year and a half, and we can get rolling. So we left. The 2 communities, I don't know who did what to who in 1904, but they have hated each other for over 100 years. They fought, they argued, they ran each other down. In fact, it took about a year, but eventually one of the communities wrote a letter to the CEO saying, you don't want to go to that neighboring town. They'll give you low tax rates to start, but then they'll jack them up and they'll soak you up. So the other community wrote a letter saying, you don't want to go there, there's drugs in the school. Your employees won't want to be there, it'll be horrible. And back and forth they went, writing nasty letters about each other to the CEO, competing to see which one would get it, to prevent the other one from getting anything. CEO came back in a year and a half and said, we'll go somewhere else. Right? If you want to kill your community, you have to compete so vigorously that you don't just compete within your community, you compete with the neighboring communities and make sure they don't get anything either. So that no one is successful. And that will ensure the entire region dies. I spend more time now working with municipalities about lines in the sand than ever. And that's because the municipalities, lots of these boundaries were drawn 100 years ago. Here's the boundary. You know what life was like 100 years ago? We rode horses. Vehicles were brand new. There was no such thing as the internet, and our kids had to walk 5 miles to school. That's the world that created those new boundaries. And now, we have the opposite. We have global international trade. We have high-speed internet. We can take a vehicle, we drive 3 hours like it's nothing, and we can fly around the world in a day. It's a different world. But there are too many people who are protecting those boundaries like it's some sort of territory in the Middle East that they're willing to die over, which is insane. They're just lines in the sand that were drawn by somebody 100 years ago to manage the area. They are not territories to be protected and fought over. If you're going to have a successful future, you need to eliminate those lines in the sand, or at least not let them get in the way. But if you want to kill your community, let those lines in the sand keep you from working together. So if you want to kill your community, you can passively not cooperate, you can aggressively compete, but there's a more devious way still. And it takes one person. Now I like to call this person the volunteer vampire. Because what they do is they join an organization and they suck the life right out of you. The example about a community hall, here's what happens when a volunteer vampire gets in charge, okay? They say, oh, I want to do the hall. I'll build the hall. Please let me, I'll go do it. And everyone says, great, we have a leader. You build the hall. Volunteer vampire is in charge now. So other volunteers come and say things like, I was thinking that maybe we should get all the volunteers together and do some brainstorming about ideas. The vampire will say, are you kidding? Have you seen how much our volunteers are taxed? I mean, frankly, they're running their own business. They sit on town and county council. They put the chairs away at church. They tie hockey skates. They're doing everything. You want to give them another project? They're exhausted. Let them be. And the volunteer will say, oh, I never thought about that. Good idea. Oh, stupid. Another volunteer will come forward and say, I know. Let's raise some money. Let's do some fundraising drives. And the vampire will say, have you seen the state of the economy? Oil and gas are down. Agriculture's not doing that hot. The forestry industry's down. I mean, we're getting taxed more every single day by those damn liberals. It's just getting horrible. And now, when you sit down for supper, you get knock, knock, knock. Would you donate to this? Knock, knock, knock. Would you buy for that? Bring. Can I have your ball? Like, everyone's donating everything. People have no money anymore. Why would you do that? And the volunteer will say, ooh, that was a bad idea. Thanks for stopping me from doing that. Another volunteer will say, hey, let's apply for some government grants. And the volunteer vampire will say, have you seen the stack of forms you have to fill out? The government has much too much paperwork, and then we got to hire somebody professionally just to compete with Denver, because Denver gets all the grants, because they have a whole team of people to fill that stuff out. And they'll say, oh, you're right, what a dumb idea, what a waste of time. And if the volunteer vampire does it right, they'll actually get thanked for stopping the project. I was at a appreciation award, 10-year appreciation award for the volunteer of the decade. They invited me to come and speak. I just told the story I told now. They gave out the 10-year service medal. Afterwards, there was a lineup of people saying, oh my God, we just gave the 10-year award to the volunteer vampire. He was involved in half of the projects he volunteered for, and none of them got done. But they never occurred to them. He just volunteered for everything and sucked the life out of the organization. So if you want to kill your community, don't cooperate. Compete if you can. Stay fiercely independent. Don't partner with any other organization. Don't pull together to build one strong community. Hold on to your territory. Hold on to your money. Hold on to your organization. Hold on to your one cause. And don't work with anybody else. And you can remain fiercely independent. And then you can die alone.